Libby Linkinsky. I'm Vice President of Public Engagement at New Israel Fund and founder of a new organization called Alon-Lee, which works to support cultural initiatives for social and political change, like film. So we're very at home here at Other Israel Film Festival. I want to take a minute before I introduce our incredible speakers to just thank the whole team here at the JCC Manhattan and the Other Israel Film Festival. They're the best partners. I work with a lot of people and they're by far the best, so thank you if anyone's around and can hear me. It's a huge honor and honestly a real pleasure to introduce the speakers sitting to my left. Roula and Alon-Lee, co-directors and co-founders? Yeah, sort of, co-founders of Standing Together, Omdim Be'achad, Nakif-Man, grassroots movement in Israel of Jews and Arabs working together for better futures across a lot of different issues. I'm not going to speak for them, they're going to speak for themselves. Part of why it's such an honor is that as an Israeli-American activist, you know, this has been, for so many of us, a very, very challenging year, maybe the hardest of our lives. And in the early days after October 7th, it felt so intense, like we were all kind of grasping and grieving. And then you came here. You took precious time away from the organizing on the ground to come here to help us. And I had the privilege then of moderating a conversation with you that in many ways I think saved my life. I mean, gave a kind of anchor to the work that we didn't have before that and that has carried us in our organizing and in our conversations for this whole last year. And so here we are. I'm privileged to welcome you back into the space here at the JCC in the Upper West Side of New York. I want to first ask everyone here, for whom is it the first time that you're hearing from Standing Together in person? Okay, so a lot of new people, welcome. Because of that, I'm going to ask you each to start by just telling us who you are, how you came to start Standing Together, and what it means to you. Roula, please.
I think my mic is not there.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. So my name is Roula Daood. I am the national co-director of Standing Together, which is a grassroots movement of both Jews and Palestinian citizens of Israel that has been working since 2015. And we will be talking more about Standing Together, but I would like to introduce myself so it would be more, you know, we can understand more why, despite everything that is happening, I still choose to wake up each and every day and a lead fight in, you know, in a partnership in a very unequal system that we live in. So I come from a small village, a Palestinian village up in the north called Kfar Yassif or Kfar Yassif. And I was brought up like most, you know, Palestinians. We're not political. Our parents don't want us to be political. You can't talk politics. You can't engage in politics. And no going out to demonstrations, nothing. Because, you know, Palestinian citizens are 20% of the citizens of Israel. It is a minority. And our parents, my parents, lived under the martial laws of Israel. So they lived, you know, their youngest years of having no rights at all. So they are very afraid for their kids to say anything or do anything. So we're not political. But when we grow up and we go out of our cities and villages, which is mainly Palestinian, and we meet, you know, the Jewish society, it happens for the first time in universities for most of us. And at the university, you're at the age of 18 and 19. And you come and you have many ideas, but prejudice sometimes. You don't really know the other side. And also they don't know the one who's standing in front of them. So you might collide. But for, minorities, I experience also a lot of racism in work, in daily life, in trying to rent an apartment in Tel Aviv, going to school, to university. And it comes, when there is, I'm going to stop doing that. When you live, in a place where you have small acts of racism against you, it accumulates. It comes to a point where something happens and it just breaks you, and you choose to do different. And for me, it was, getting to an airport, trying to travel, and being asked to go to a different line to be checked, a security check, and I was asked to strip off my clothes. And I didn't really understand why I was asked to do that, and it was after I finished my first degree. But at that same moment, being, standing in a room with another security woman and stripping off your clothes is a very humiliating action. It's an act of, humiliation, pure humiliation, just to let you know your place in this society, and to let you know that we are the ones who have the power over you. At that moment, I understood, how the country I live in, that is supposed to be my country, looks at me. And I'm a threat to that country. So when I came back and I started working as a speech therapist, I was working in a clinic in Ashdod. Years after, in 2014, there was a war on Gaza. And it was, back then, one of the worst wars, because there were more, we don't want to compare, but it was a war where there was many Palestinian kids killed by Israeli bombings. And when I went one morning to the clinic, I came to the bakery that I always go to in the morning, and the newspaper that was in that bakery had on the first page the faces of all of the kids, the Palestinian kids that were killed by the Israeli bombings. And a woman who stopped, stand next to me buying something, a Jewish woman, she looked at the newspaper and she said, "We should kill them all. They deserve it. Let them just burn." And in these situations, many times, we as Palestinians, we don't speak, okay? And especially in Ashdod, whereas, it is a Jewish city, and probably I was the only Palestinian there, and it's really close to the borders with Gaza. But when you see kids, in the newspaper, it's kids. They haven't chosen anything. It's not their fault to be killed. And I answered back, and I told him, you know what? You're right. We should kill them all, burn them. And then me and you can go to the rooftop of this building and listen to the kids in Gaza screaming while they're being burned alive. And when I said that, there was a silence in the bakery. And I think it was the first time that woman, really understood what she was wishing for kids to be killed. And from that point on, I decided I needed to do a change. And I started looking for, a place to become more political. And then I became also part of Standing Together, which is a movement that organizes both Jews and Palestinian inside of the Israeli society in a demand and fights for social justice, economic justice, environmental justice, but also ending the occupation on the West Bank, lifting the siege from Gaza. And until, the 7th of October, we've led many fights together as citizens of Israel. But the day of the 7th of October has made, also a change to many of us. And I think somehow also changed the path of our movement. But about that, we will talk later. And I will give it to Alon-Lee to introduce himself.
Same. Hi, Libby.
Hi.
We kind of missed you in all the talks until now. Yeah, we did. Usually when we come to the US, we get to have a lot of time and events with Libby. And we've been now, we came yesterday night to New York, but we've been in Boston and Western Massachusetts, and you weren't there. It was, yeah. And I'm gonna tell my story again after you heard it so many times. So I'm sorry for the people that maybe heard it, and I will try to do it briefly. But I come from a very small family. It's my twin brother, my mother, and used to be our grandmother until she passed away, and that's it. And my mom was a single mom, raising two children alone in the very expensive city of Tel Aviv. Struggling financially. I think a lot of moments in my childhood were moments that I didn't know or didn't understand, but actually I faced with some kind of unfairness around me, around those issues. I think one of my very early political memories were me in my 6th grade, our school wanting to take us to a yearly trip of 2 days to the southern city of Eilat in the Red Sea. You get to be excited. You think, yes, that's the first time I'm going to spend time alone, away with not your mom. But then the teacher calls my name in front of the entire class, saying that if my mom will not bring the check, the payment for the trip until tomorrow morning, I'm not going to get on the bus. And then you feel embarrassed, you feel shame, you feel you have no control over this reality. You stare at your teacher's eyes, but actually everyone else is staring at you. And these are the kind of moments I feel push me as a child to feel maybe there's some unfairness to the world. Maybe the world is not just. I discovered I'm gay years later. Another issue of feeling there's no justice around me. There's no fairness. In my last year of high school, I started working as an adolescent, trying to support home. And where do you work when you are 18 or 17? You go to a coffee place, you start wait tables, and I started working a big coffee shop chain in Israel. And when you do that, usually the laws of workers' rights, the things that should protect your rights at work, are just basically a recommendation. You need to get in the law payment for extra hours. They don't do that. Working in Shabbat, you need to get 200% of your salary. They don't do that. And I remember going to my boss in a few months after starting working there, telling him, listen, I know the laws. I mean, it's a basic knowledge that you need to get these payments. And he told me, if you don't want to have these conditions here, you can cross the street and go work somewhere else. It's a lot of cafes around. But I didn't. We unionized the workers instead. We built what became the first union of dining industry in Israel. It led to me being fired in this place, of course, but we took them to court. I was brought back to work by a court's order. We led a strike of a few weeks, and we won. We signed the first collective agreement of young workers, dining workers in the history of Israel. And I think that was really the first moment in my life where I felt maybe I do have some control over my reality. I understood also very deeply that it has something to do with me working with other people, organizing with other people that are in the same reality than me, even though they can come from very different realities. One of these members of the union, the 5 people that led this almost 2 years struggle, his name was Nazir Taha. He was a Palestinian citizen of Israel. And it blew my mind back then that a Palestinian citizen of Israel can lead 400 workers, 90% of them Jewish, maybe even more, in a very tough struggle of 6 weeks of a strike, of fights with the management, sometimes even physical violence with bodyguards they hired to not allow us to get into our workplace, but they trusted him to lead them. And something clicked. I felt maybe when we recognize our interests, even if we come from very different places, we can work together to build something that will be better for all of us. So we'll stop here, and that's kind of how I started.
Nope. I'm just gonna. We'll just use.
What's this there?
Thank you.
can you each tell us how those lessons comes into standing together? And also, maybe walk us through what standing together was before the 7th and what it has been since, even if the answer is nothing changed. Although I assume that's not the answer.
So remember I said the war of 2014? Well, Standing Together went out to the streets for the first time when a bunch of, activists, both Jews and Palestinians, saw that there is yet another war on Gaza, no real political solutions, no new ideas. Prime Minister, the same one, Bibi Netanyahu, who says again and again the same words in each and every war, that this time Hamas will be eradicated, and this time Hamas will be finished, and this is, total victory. But then we'll end up with another war. And just for you to understand, this is the 14th war, between Israel and Hamas, which means too many wars for the people living in the regions, too many people being killed for the politics of a leadership that is not working for us. So what we try to do is to call out for people and see that what we want is to end the wars, to live in safety, to do not have violence in our streets, because each and every time there is a war, there is violence in our streets. And in 2015, in the midst of one of, again, a very harsh period to our society, we called out for people to come out and demonstrate. And we had the demonstration in Jerusalem, and thousands of people came under the slogan of "Stop the occupation, lift the siege, stop the violence in our streets, and we demand, solutions." Thousands came, and we were amazed. So we took that, the same demonstration, and we held it in Tel Aviv, and thousands of people came. And then Haifa, and it happened again. And then went to the Triangle area, which is mainly of Palestinian villages and cities, and thousands of people came. And it made us understand that we are not a bunch of lefty lunatics who say things that people don't believe in. Actually, there is, a bigger people who believe in the same things we believe. So it means that we are doing something right. We are calling for something that is demanded by the people. So we understood that we need to mobilize people more into the streets and understand how big of a power we are. 2 years after, we started organizing people as activists in different chapters all over the country, but not just in issues of ending the occupation and ending the violence, but also on issues that affect our daily life: social justice, economic justice, the ability to end the month with a payment that is respectful for people, the ability to send our kids to a school where they can get a good education. The simple belief that we have, and we still have it, is the majority of the people living in Israel want the same things: safety, dignity, the ability to live a good life. And when we choose struggles that can combine different and various parts of our society, we are able to build a new majority of the people. And that is the theory of change, of standing together. And these are the kind of, struggles we've led. But when the 7th of October happened, one of the worst days for, I think, many of us, if not all of us, back home. And I think each and every one of us has a story of how we woke up on that same day, seeing, horrible images from the south, and for some of us even losing some friends in the parties, some of us having their, families being called to get into Gaza, and for some of us seeing, the retaliation of our government on some of the people who have families in Gaza that are still being bombed until this day. And the fact that we were, well organized, and we had people enabled us to stand up, 2 days after the attack, and to demand something different. We do not want another war. We do not want leadership that speaks of revenge. We do not want a place where people will be still bombed a day after a day. We said 2 days after the 7th of October, this is a time for a deal. That was the first voice we held. And since the 7th of October, we have been demanding the same thing. We demand that this war stop. We demand a ceasefire. We demand a hostage deal that can bring 101 hostages back home alive, not in coffins. And we demand that the killing, the slaughtering, the starvation, and the destruction of people in Gaza stop. And the only way we can reach that is when we have the power from the people within our society to have that demand and push our government. So that was and still is the thing that we are doing each and every day back home in various campaigns and in various actions within our daily life. And I do want to say, maybe relate to the movie. How many of you have seen the movie? All of you came from the movie downstairs? We know most of the people in the movie, and our work is a daily work. Each and every day, we wake up and try to understand what do we need to do right now to change our reality. And I know these kind of movies, they're supposed to give hope, but it made me really sad. In many ways, when we do what we do, we keep on going. We don't really stop. We don't want to think about the sad things because we need to continue doing things because we don't want to be tired. We don't want to be sad because if we are sad, we will give up. But in a movement that is big and has both sides working in it, even at times when we can be, tired and we want to be sad for a while, there are other people, hundreds, thousands of people actually, who will keep on doing what we take, a small part to relax from and get back our powers. So, yes, that movie made me a bit more sad because I've seen too many faces who are not here anymore. But at the same time, I still see hope because I see people working each and every day. Some of them are in that movie, and that is what we do. That is how standing together is still being able to grow and be bigger within our society.
Maybe you asked about lessons also that we try to imply and to apply in this reality of 14 months of hell and sorrow and grief and really the worst kind of reality a person cannot even imagine that will be in. Reality where we feel we are still somehow free falling, never hitting the ground, even though sometimes we believe, well, wow, it's so bad, it must be like the bottom, right? Like we will not get lower than this, and then you keep on falling and you keep on seeing the smiles, the very smug and vicious smiles on, those people that lead us, being so drunk on power, being able to secure more years in the government, in the coalition. And I guess, first of all, we need to admit it's been tough. It's been tough, it's been dark, it's been heartbreaking. Just before coming here today, we've seen the video Hamas released of Matan Tsengauker, one of the 100 hostages that are still there in Gaza. And you felt like in the first moments, oh my God, he's alive and he's not okay. It's actually, you can see this movie and he's not okay. Physically, it seems he's not okay. Mentally, it's obvious that he's not okay, but he's alive. And you get like, wow, that's crazy. And it's important to know. And then you see this part of him addressing directly to his mom, Einav, who is one of the lioness, a woman that goes to every and each corner of our country and land and speaks with every person and cries to release her son and to release the hostages with a deal, very clearly with a deal, not by military operation, which can kill her son. And he tells her, Mom, I see in the news, I hear you in the radio, I know you're doing everything you can to get me back home, and you want to cry there, and it's just terrible. And our lives are filled with these moments. Every day, every week, another family dies, another city has been eradicated, another front opens, another minister tells us that it is the miraculous time of our lifetime. It's all combined together. And I think one of the very deepest lucks we actually had was to have each other, first of all, coming to this moment as a movement already, as a collective, as a group of people that can speak with each other, that can have shared spaces, that can call each other already on October 7th, and just to process, or not even beginning to process, but maybe talk about what is going on together. And I think that led us to the ability to somehow understand and acknowledge and accept the fact that we experience different realities, that we see different truths, that we are in different places and we come from different communities and different people, but we share the same reality, maybe just different sides of it. And it allowed us to say it is okay to be living in a building in Haifa, which is a shared city of Palestinians and Jews together. And in the third floor, to open your Instagram after October 7th, being a Jewish resident of this building, and seeing the stories of the Nova Music Festival, of seeing the hostages, seeing all the sorrow and grief about what happened on October 7th, and to say, this is your reality and we accept it. And in the floor below, a Palestinian can live, turning on their Instagram or social media, seeing rubbles and cities that have been eradicated by our bombardments in Gaza, seeing mothers shouting their lungs out because of family members that have been, killed by our bombings, and to understand that that's another reality that exists in the same time, and that our job is somehow to bridge between those two realities and say both exist. We have compassion and the ability to exist in both of these spaces and to acknowledge both of those feelings, and we need to have one message that will be relevant to both people, spoken in two languages, because we always speak in two languages. And we kept on going with this. We kept on creating these spaces more and more and more. At the beginning, it was emotional. At the beginning, it was just holding each other. Then it became more political because it needed to become more political, because our government capitalized on the trauma, used the very real feelings of fear and trauma to push our society into losing our humanity. And we couldn't say it's something we're accepting. We needed to take a stand, and we needed to speak up and to say there are human beings in Gaza, there are innocent people in Gaza. It is still a debate in the Israeli politics. Till this day, people from the coalition can say there are no innocent people in Gaza. So we must take a stand. And I think those lessons or those abilities of just coming from other places, but understanding that we are here in this together somehow, it created also the capacity to keep on doing what we've been doing, and to keep on the campaigns and the struggles in the streets, and collecting a lot of things that we can actually tell you soon, but yeah.
I love what you said about, we realized that we had each other. It sounds so simple, even a little trite, but I think that another place where there's a huge gap is between here and what we experience as Americans and American Jews living in the United States versus what it's like to be living on the ground. And I remember when you came in November of 2023, right after, and you said, Alon-Lee, you said, I feel like I left a war zone into another war zone. That the discourse wars here were already so intense and very different from there. And I think that the fact of Palestinians and Jews sticking together is already so monumental for us here to see, because the way our polarization has been working is that just feels very impossible a lot of the time. And here you are still having each other. And that's not a small thing, and it's not a small thing for us to witness and be in conversation with. As is evidenced by the fact that every screening here at Other Israel is completely sold out. Every talk that you're giving all around the country is packed. And not just you, also Aziza Busara and Maoz Inon, and Julie and Mo, and people are wanting to be in this conversation. And so I want to take it forward a little bit. I'm using you. I'm asking you the questions that I have a hard time bringing an answer to when people ask me. So one of them is this sticking together. What does it look like as a national vision? In other words, like Maoz Inon often says, our future is where we come together. We've had a past of separation and oppression. We have a present day of war, but we meet in the future in equality and reconciliation. And I want to ask you, what is standing together working for? What's in your wildest imagination of what it could look like to be together between the river and the sea?
Yes, yeah. For now, a ceasefire is good by us. For now, we will be okay with a ceasefire and ending to this war. But of course, we want more. It's not just that we want more. We deserve more. We deserve better. In the land that we live, the one I call home and Alon-Lee calls home, 2 people live. That is a fact, okay? Many wars have been done. Many people with messianic ideas, horrible ideas of conquering more land, putting settlements in, right now in the north of Gaza, taking more of Lebanon, a bit of Syria, more from Jordan, and some messianic people who dream of, the bigger Israel. And at the same time, also other, leadership that thinks that, we will only have wars again and again and again, repeatedly for the people. And we've been seeing that the past years, these wars, these military actions are not doing us, any different. On the contrary, with each and every military action, extremists become stronger. For now, with each and every bomb that falls on Gaza, Hamas becomes stronger, and so does Bibi Netanyahu. And as Alon-Lee have said, he secured his 2 years. There's not going to be elections in the next 2 years, so this is the government that we will have, and it is a lunatic government led by Ben-Gvir, Netanyahu, and Smotrich. And these people have very clear political views. They do not care about the majority of the people living in Israel, and they only care about a small minority that wants to just settle in Gaza, in the West Bank. And our dream is a different dream, because our reality cannot be maintained, cannot be staying in a position where we just be killing or be killed. We believe that none of us is going nowhere. That is a fact. It is home for both of us. But we also believe that we deserve a leadership that works for us, the people living in Israel, Palestine. And that leadership is the one that eventually will have to sit down with one another and decide what will we do. And it's not just a decision of, where will the line go on the map? What will be yours and ours? It is also a decision that is made that both people on that land deserve equality, deserve safety, deserve, independence. And the way we see it right now is that we need to build, and we work on building, a political power and a political will from within our people that believe in these principles. Because in order to get to a place where our leadership demands it, we need to pressure them to demand that. Because at the end of the day, the future will still be maintained as Palestinians and Jews living on that land. The real question is, How will we live on it? Will it still be a reality of occupation, of military occupation of the West Bank, of injustice within the Israeli society between its citizens, of, more settlements in Gaza? Or will it be a future of real prosperity for the people living in Israel and Palestine? And we see that the only way to have that prosperity is by leading a fight from within the people to put pressure on our leadership to demand a different future. And excuse me for saying that, and I know some people want to try and help us, maybe some countries want to also try and help us, but I do believe that the only ones that can really help us is us, by working together, by demanding together, by going out into the streets together. And I also believe that, coming to 2025, which is going to be a horrible year for all of us, we have war, but we will have Trump. So the alliances that are being made right now is an alliance between Bibi, Trump, two lunatics who have supremacist ideas, who will just, wipe out everything we love and everything we have worked for. So the future I see is also a future of alliances, new alliances between us, the people who believe that deserve better. So in the work we are doing in the future that I do see, they have their own messianic ideas, but we have our ideas of a future that has a real peace. That is the future I see, and that is the future we should all be working for, not just standing together.
I'm going to ask you one more thing, and then we're going to open it up, and then have some conversation, and then I'll take privilege and ask the last question at the very end. I want to ask you, how do you answer the questions that come from people who believe that any sympathetic remarks about Palestinians in Gaza or in general is anti-Semitic? And how do you answer the question that any grief shared for hostage families or Israeli pain is somehow apologizing for what the Israeli government and military are doing in Gaza? And I will just remind you that a couple of the things that you said, and by the way, Roula wasn't here that first trip after it was Alon-Lee and Sally Abed. She's not here now because she's involved in the next initiative of Standing Together, which is Standing Together Babies. Preschool is too late to start working for peace, so Sally's getting on that as she is nursing her newborn back at home. But you both said a few things. One of them, and they cut through like crystal, like a fork-hitting crystal. One, there are two peoples living on the land, and that's a fact. They're not going anywhere. The question is, how are we going to live? The second was something where you said, we were all protesting, massive, unprecedented protests for democracy on the ground in Israel and here in New York and around America. It's the same government that we were protesting then that is still calling the shots now. Let's not forget that. And we have to speak to a popular call. People's lives, they have to see how through joining their lives can get materially better. And I think so many of us resonated with that. Like you made it simple, and yet there are those critiques from what they call both sides. And I want to know what you say to those questions.
First of all, we say that we are tired already.
Yeah.
Extremely, extremely, extremely tired of being needed or having to deal with people that do not put themselves, do not bother, after 14 months of hell, to put themselves on the side of the solution and the power building towards the solution, and keep on nagging or keep on dwelling on the question of words and terminology and symbolism. And honestly, it's been too much, and it's tiring at this point because, come on, it's maybe interesting sometimes to have these discussions. Maybe it's sometimes interesting from the academic point of view. But eventually, we're coming back to the land. Some of the people that will throw at us, but why aren't you are condemning enough anti-Semitism? Why aren't you using this and this word about what happens in the Palestinian side? They will stay here. They will keep on fighting here with other people, which mainly sometimes is their main goal, I guess. We will go on a plane, go back to where we work, do the activity every day, put sometimes our lives in danger, see the news or experience the terrible horrors that are coming from Gaza, keep on being discriminated systematically as Palestinians, sometimes suffer threats from other right-wing activists in Israel, and that will be our experience and life. And I guess that at this moment, we must be clear about our goals. Is it to shout at reality, to condemn reality? Because if you're there, it's okay. But if you want to change reality, we need to build power. We need to build power, and that means we need to work together. We need to build coalitions. We need to bother ourselves with the question of how are we going to change this reality? Is it going to be because we're praying strong enough, we're shouting enough at people, condemning, or I don't know, being in the side of using the sharpest words that we can find in the vocabulary? Or if I want to get to the end of this room, I need to ask myself, what are the steps I need to step in to get there? And honestly, it is a moment to put those things behind us, because seeing also people in this country not being able to work together against a threat to their lives here in these elections, keeping on fighting against something that happens on the other side of the world, that probably you can agree that you need to stop the killing, you need to stop the ethnic cleansing in Gaza, you need to prevent from settlements being built there, you need to release the hostages. You can agree on that. But because you cannot agree about the wording on how to describe this, you will fight with each other and not unite against a threat that will destroy your communities. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, if you ask about lessons, if we are able, in the extremist of realities, in a country that really falls into fascism in Israel, in a country where there's rivers of blood running in the streets, right? In a country that is creating the worst human catastrophe of this century to the Palestinians in Gaza, if we are able to stand together, Palestinians and Jews, it should be possible for you guys to tell those people in the Jewish community or in the Republican right wing that's saying that any criticism to Israel is anti-Semitism, go, yourselves. And you should be also able to tell the others that want freedom to the Palestinians and their right to demand freedom to the Palestinians. We need to work together. And another thing I think we should agree on is that we are not that fragile. We're not that fragile. We can work together in a coalition. The essence of a coalition is working with someone that is not me, right? That's a coalition. It's kind of the definition of the word. We are not that fragile, so we can cooperate with others that are not ourselves. They use other words, they use other terminology. We can agree on the goal instead of dwell in the things we don't agree on.
Yeah. Thank you. You always remind me, Alon-Lee, that you always say this thing that I quote all the time, which is that when people feel powerless to change the actual reality, they start going for the discourse.
Yeah.
And that we're trying to actually change the reality. So let's see what we've got going on in the room. There's a roving mic, so it's not me calling on you. It's a...
Hi. So I have a depressing question. How do you deal with the fact that
at present in Israel, and I say this as an Israeli American, most Israeli Jews don't really care what happens to Palestinians. You can debate what the percentage is, but I'm sort of seeing friends of mine, former friends of mine, family members, it's just not a priority. What do you do about that?
Could people hear the question?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's do another one at the same time, just because there's so many in the room. Yeah, the mic is roving, so I don't get to call.
Has there been any growing resistance in Gaza against Hamas among Palestinians? And what is your proposal for after the ceasefire, everything that would happen so that the two people could, not kill each other side by side and Palestinians can thrive?
Thanks. Okay, let's take these two and then we'll go elsewhere in the room.
I'll take the first one if you want. She wanted the second one. So to your question about the Israeli people and the very tough phenomenons in our society, and we don't want to sugarcoat the reality. After October 7th, we could see extremely worrying phenomenons of people writing or saying things that are, giving the chills, and they will really, really make you feel that, oh my God, is this our society right now? But the real answer to it, what we do, is that we have compassion and we have a deep belief to our belonging to our society. We believe strongly that we are the patriots of our society, that what we are doing is not only to the sake or for the sake of Palestinians, or not only to stand in solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza, and every person should be standing in solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank and in Israel. It's an oppressed people, oppressed by us. There's no discussion about it. But we also do our fight in order to serve our self-interest, which is the missing component of the politics that we a lot of times see. Because a politics of self-interest is a winning kind of politics. Is a politics that connect interests of people that are dying of bombardments, of starvation, of diseases right now in Gaza, and people that are living in a society that do not have any interest to be this kind of a society that loses their humanity, that enslaves itself to sending their soldiers, their sons and daughters, into killing and get killed. In the name of what? Of building Jewish settlements there in Gaza? What are we still doing there? We do not have this interest. And yes, ignorance is a problem. Yes, the media in Israel is a problem. The media does not show us in Israel what is going on in Gaza. At this point, it is a crime. It is a crime. They're doing it because of fear from the government, fear that already translated into self-censorship. No one needs a law in Israel to be legislated in order to make a reporter not to show what happens in Gaza. They know their place and they know how to act because it's what will happen to them that scares them. So we found other solutions. First, Standing Together grew immensely in social media. We put a lot of our energies and efforts on social media, both on the, general and formal platforms of Standing Together in Arabic and Hebrew. And of September, we became the largest Israeli organization, Arabic, Hebrew, right-wing, center, left-wing, the largest Israeli organization on both TikTok and Instagram. No other organization or movement is bigger than us. And it is important for us to have the ability to speak with hundreds of thousands of Israelis a day, and sometimes millions of unique users of Israelis a week. Yes, a lot of these views will be hate views, people that will tell us very difficult things. But this is one tool that we're using. We're also developing a program of 20 of our leaders, Palestinians and Jews, that we're building their presence in public and media and social media to also have their voices being sound. And we have numerous people with tens or even more than tens of thousands of followers themselves in each of the platforms. And the day we actually went on a plane to Boston to here in this trip, I think it's 4 days ago, we launched campaign, after weeks of having our members and tens of thousands of people petitioning the media and telling them you have to expose what we try to now call the prices of the war, the endless war. You have to expose this. You have to speak about it. And after failing in convincing the media, we put a lot of money to buy hundreds of billboards all across the country, and we put on them pictures of children in Gaza. In cities, pictures of graves of soldiers, pictures of the heads of the settlers, the leaders of the settlers celebrating the returning into Gaza, pictures of hostages still being neglected and staying in Gaza. And we say, the slogan there is, we have to end the war before the war will end us all. And this is our ability to combine the messages of self-interest, standing in solidarity with Gaza, saying that we are all losing yes, we know it, we acknowledge that we lose in different degrees. Palestinians are paying an ultimate price in this reality, but still we are all losing from this reality, and we can all benefit and win out of having a reality of equality, of freedom, of peace to all of us.
I will try to answer your question, and I want to start by just facts and numbers, because by saying that, it will give the ability to understand the reality in Gaza. It's been more than a year to this war, and right now we all know that there is more than 44,000 people killed in Gaza. More than 16,000 of them are kids. Approximately 7% of the infrastructure in Gaza is destroyed, so there are no streets in Gaza. There is hunger in the north of Gaza. Hunger. People are dying out of hunger in Gaza. No real humanitarian aid that can really be enough for 2.2 million people is getting in. So we are talking about a total chaos that's happening inside of Gaza for more than a year because of this war. And I do believe, even without speaking to anybody from Gaza, and I don't really have the ability to speak to people from Gaza because Gaza has been under siege, military siege by Israel for 17 years. So Gaza didn't really govern itself. But I do believe that if we will ask someone who's being bombed each and every day for more than a year, if they have the ability to resist, the question will be no. Because people in Gaza right now are trying to survive just to stay alive. Okay, there is no means, to even end a day. So furthermore, to think of any kind of a resistance that can be, that come from a people that are being bombed for more than a year, it is just, somehow unrealistic. The way that we can maybe help, or start to help, is by putting all the efforts to stop the war, to rebuild Gaza, so then people in Gaza can have the ability to choose an alternative that governs them. Because when Gaza was under siege, even the whole years of Gaza, with Hamas being elected once and after there was no elections, if Hamas wanted to build an airport, they couldn't, because Israel won't allow them. So even before the 7th of October, the power wasn't in the hands not of real Hamas leadership, and of course not of the people who have been oppressed also by Hamas. So the real question, I do think, is how can we really help with knowing that the hegemonic force in this situation is well known. What can we do? How can we put pressure on that force so the war would end, so people will start rebuilding their lives in Gaza so they can have a real alternative to govern themselves?
Thank you. I'm getting the looks, and so we're bringing this to a close. But today's a special day. Not just.
I have a very important question.
I'm sorry.
Where I can give a donation.
Wonderful. Yes.
We don't usually allow interruptions.
But that's a good one. If you want to talk about donations, Nadav, wonderful Nadav, is there in the back, also wearing purple like me. You can always, of course, give through New Israel Fund as well. But I was just beginning to say that it's a very special day, not just because it's the Other Israel Film Festival and we're all here together, but it's Alon-Lee's birthday. And you're here with us and not with your family at home. And so we're just going to take a little minute to celebrate you because, I mean, we've known each other for many, many years. Alon-Lee is he's very young, but he's a very seasoned activist even before standing together. And, but on a serious note, speaking not just on behalf of myself and our friendship and relationship, I don't think you could possibly understand what you've meant to so many people here in New York and also all around the country, all around the internet and social media, a voice of determination, of sanity, of so much love and commitment to the values and the homeland that so many of us hold dear. I'm getting overwhelmed just talking about it. So what better way than to start? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Alon-Lee. Happy birthday to you. עד 120, אלון-לי יקר. And I'm turning.
So much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for everything, for all that you do. And those wonderful partners from Other Israel Film Festival that I was talking about. This is Isaac Yitzi Zablaki. I'm handing it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Libby. Thank you, of course, for being a part of this panel and for joining us here today. Thank you all also for being a part of this and listening and really making us not feel alone in all of this. Alon and Roula, your work is amazing. We say this about all of our partners at Other Israel, but I'm going to really highlight NIF and Standing Together as really our focus of this year's festival. So please check out all of their amazing work. Please join us for more and help spread the word. We are here all week with many more films. Right now, across the hall, there's Madrasa going on, Said Kashua's series about bilingual schools in Israel, and it's a comedy. We can laugh a little bit at ourselves sometimes.
My 11-year-old niece is obsessed with it.
It's a wonderful, accessible show. You could probably even grab one last episode if you want to join in. Tomorrow we start off with the Checkpoint Women, Egypt, the Love Song, and then the BB Files, which is sold out. A Very Narrow Bridge is on Monday night, and we close with Shoshana. We also have another screening, I think I mentioned this earlier, of The Path Forward tomorrow in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Heights Synagogue at 1 p.m. So please tell your friends about all this. Join, be a part, and thank you so much. Have a good day.